great to be among friends and to talk with friends. Some 2,000 years ago, there were 12 Palestinian men who spread around the world preaching the good news. And they conquered the world. Those are the apostles. So everything began there in Palestine. And Christianity began there. And since the first century, we have Palestinians, Christians, who live in that land. Now, the history was not easy always, but what we are facing today is critical for the Christian community because they are part of the Palestinian people. And if I come here to South Africa to speak with you, because I feel that we are one body. And we know as Christians that we are the body of Christ. Whenever a member suffers, the whole body suffers with it. And this step of coming here, it's because we have many friends, because we are the same body of Christ, and because you have your own experience. The more I learn about your experience, I can see it in my case, in my situation living in Palestine. We live under military occupation for the last 51 years. We had our own Nakba, or catastrophe, in 1948, where we lost 78% of our land, and two-thirds of the Palestinians became refugees, who are still living in refugee camps since that time. And the military occupation means that every single step is controlled by the Israeli army. Yesterday I went to Sharpeville, and we listened to the story of Sharpeville in the 60s with a massacre perpetrated against black there because they were protesting against the pass and because they were accused of approaching the fence and throwing stones. You know something? I have my own pass because that's the system that we live by in Palestine. I have it with me. We call it permit, but this is the pass. And every Friday in Gaza, where Palestinians protest the Great Return March, and the Israeli soldiers shoot at them because they approach the fence and they throw stones. 2016, the city of Ramallah, where I come from, I'm the parish priest of Ramallah, we received a great gift from South Africa, from the city of Johannesburg, as the statue of Mandela, 6 meters high, and it's the square, the Mandela Square, Nelson Mandela Square in Ramallah. That's a mark point now in Ramallah. During the ceremony, the mayor of Ramallah said this is a sign of hope and inspiration. And I think it's important because we know about the history and the struggle of South Africa and how hard it was during apartheid period. And you did not give up. You did not lose hope. So do we. We are inspired by your struggle, and you give us hope. In 2009, Christians from different churches, we gathered, we discussed, we reflected, and then we decided to write a document called Kairos, Palestine. And we took the word Kairos from the South African Kairos in 1985. That was also a source of inspiration for us, where we say that the military occupation of Israel of Palestinian land is a sin against God and against human beings. Now maybe we can modify the word occupation by apartheid. Because in the Kairos, South Africa in the 80s, that was apartheid is a sin. Last week, I hope that's not too much information, but just to tell you about the situation there. Last week, the Israeli Knesset, the Israeli parliament, approved a basic law called nation-state law. In that law, it says that only Jews have the right of self-determination. Does it remind you of something? What happened in 1948 in South Africa happened last week with the Israeli parliament making Israel officially an apartheid state where Israel denies the right of self-determination to the 50% of the population in the Holy Land that is Palestinian. And the same basic law, they encourage settlements, the colonization of the land. And strangely, I heard yesterday from a journalist about the same issue of the land. And in Bethlehem, right now, Bethlehem, we, the Palestinians, we control the 13% of the land. Does it remind you of something of your own history? And this morning, a journalist, another South African journalist, asked me about the BDS, and she said, but the boycott will harm the Palestinians. You know, same thing in the 70s and the 80s, where those who were opposed to boycott the BDS of South Africa said it will harm black people. So the more I learn about the struggle and the history of South Africa, the more I identify. And when I tell you about our situation in Palestine, you will recognize, you will see what, you will understand very well what I am talking about. There are a lot of similarities, but let me go to an important point, which is the Bible. We as Palestinians, as Christians, of course the Bible is our book and we love it. We love reading it. And we have one more reason to love the Bible, by the way, because the Bible talks about our country, about us, about our ancestors in our country. So we have one more reason. But unfortunately, some Jews and some Christians are using the Bible to justify the oppression of the Palestinian people, saying that this is the promised land, and this promised land was given to God's chosen people. Some of those arguments were used also in the history of South Africa, where settlers came to the promised land. Now this is a very important and dangerous step because this is a misuse of the Bible. It justifies oppression, it justifies occupation, and it gives the impression that we as Christians, we have to support Israel. And if you want to see what I'm talking about, tomorrow there will be a march for Israel in Johannesburg, and there will be Christians there to demonstrate in favor of Israel. So it's happening also in South Africa. For us, the God that we believe in is the creator of all human beings at his image and resemblance. That's why we are all equals before God. Our own life and dignity comes from God. And we can never let anyone take away our dignity because that's given to us by God. If we fight to be equals, because as Palestinians we don't have rights just because we are Palestinian, just because I have this green ID. My rights, national rights, and even personal rights are taken away because I'm a Palestinian. But if we read the Bible, the God that we believe in, the God is the Father of all human beings. He's a just, loving God to all his children. So that's why all those so-called theologies to justify support of the occupation of Palestine and the colonization of the Palestinian land, they are not biblical. And they betray a different, and they give a strange image of God, as if God was a tribal God, God of a tribe fighting with his own tribe against everyone else. No, our God is the creator of all peoples. The Bible, as His Excellency the Bishop said, was always in favor of the oppressed and the poor. And the Bible asks us to work for justice. Many people talk about peace in the Holy Land. This word peace is very much used, peace process, peace negotiations, peace this, peace that. Everyone is saying peace, 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 and there is no peace. And that's Prophet Jeremiah who said that, by the way. It's not me. What we want is justice. Justice for the Palestinians, justice for the refugees, justice for people of Gaza, justice for all Palestinians, and our right to live in our own independent, viable state, where we can control our lives, where we can control our economy, we can control our fate and our destiny. That's what we are going through as daily life. And there's another important point, which is the question of hope. Many people see what's going on the ground, especially the colonization of the Palestinian land, where now we have more than 650,000 settlers living in Palestinian land. With the construction of the separation wall, with the control of Israel of more than 60% of the land, with natural resources, with declaring Jerusalem unified as eternal capital of the Jewish people, it pushes Palestinians toward despair. Because if we are looking forward to an independent Palestinian state and we look on realities on the ground, it's almost impossible to have now a Palestinian state. So even if you hear politicians talk about the two-state solution, even Netanyahu said the two-state solution, but he's doing everything to make this solution impossible. That's very dangerous for young people, and we have the experience. Because young people try to react, some of them in a desperate way. Those who say we are not going to suffer alone, they are going to suffer as well. Those who leave the country, and this is a dangerous also aspect, that there are young people who are leaving, who are immigrating from Palestine, and this includes the Christians and the Christian community. Hope is very difficult, but we know as Christians, especially those who, as Christians who believe in the resurrection, we believe in life, not in death. We believe in justice, not injustice. We believe in reconciliation. We believe in our God who is loving, who will never be happy with the suffering of his children. Keeping hope alive is a daily work. Just to give an example, the churches, we Christians, we are few in numbers, yes, but the most important question is not how many Christians or what is the percentage of Christians for me, no. What kind of presence they have in Palestine. Although we are few in numbers, we have a mission there. And our mission is to be at the service of everyone, especially the poor and oppressed, and to give hope, especially through education. We have many schools. In Ramallah alone, we have 7 Christian schools. For the Catholic Church in Jordan and Palestine and Israel, we have 118 schools. And we are talking here about a small country, by the way. So universities, schools, education is a priority for us to empower young people, of course, and to give them hope for the future. And we keep this message always within our practice, our life, a message of hope for everyone. And the last point is, what should we do? What should we do? This question is addressed to ourselves as Palestinians. We tried armed struggle like any other colonized nation or country in the world. We tried armed struggle or violence. It didn't work. We went to negotiations, and unfortunately it didn't work. So the question for the Palestinians is, what should we do? So there is an increasing number of Palestinians who are in favor of the non-violent resistance to occupation. And of course, as you know, non-violence is a whole range of things, activities, including not only demonstrations against the wall and the occupation, but all the work done to build the infrastructure of a state, to build a civil society, the work on our culture, on education, on human rights. And we have many NGOs, non-governmental organizations working for women's rights, children's rights, human rights in general. All this work, and of course we include diplomacy, going to international organizations, going to the UN to ask the world to recognize the Palestinian state, and many, many other aspects. This is the way to obtain our freedom back. But non-violent resistance needs the support and solidarity of the international community. You have the experience. It's not only BDS, but BDS is a very important tool, non-violent tool, to make pressure on Israel to end its occupation. Occupation, by the way, is a very flourishing economy for Israel. They gain billions of dollars every year. So just boycotting the products of the settlements, for example, will harm occupation, will make a great pressure on Israel. So this is a very important tool, but the non-violent resistance does not exclude any other means, including theology. The way we preach about the Old Testament, the way we talk about Israel, sometimes not making the difference between Israel of the Bible and the state of Israel. And this confusion creates a lot of, misunderstanding for Christians. To be clear about in our preaching, in our theology, about the theology of the land, for example, and chosenness, etc., etc. Those are important issues. The international solidarity movement also has an impact. The EAPPI, that's very important. And I see how the impact of all those who came to Palestine and spent some time with the Palestinians, how they can promote justice and peace in Palestine. And what about South Africa? I know we have many friends, and I'm really glad and happy to see many friends here. But what can we do? I hate to tell people what to do, okay? I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm a friend asking your support. I mentioned theology because I know of some Christian Zionist theologies going on in South Africa, where we need to be careful. I'm not here talking about any specific church, but across the denominations, there are those ideas, and there are many more things to do As we were inspired by the struggle of South Africa, as you helped us a lot in finding new ways to fight against occupation, we are coming to you to seek support, solidarity, and concrete steps. And thank you very much. Thank you. Do Palestinian Christians and Muslims work together? Yes, for the last 14th century, we work together. Since the 7th century, we continue to live together and work together. And I don't see any reason why shouldn't we. We live the same life. We are all Palestinians. We have the same culture, same language. We live under the same occupation, same oppression. We fight together against this oppression. And I don't see any reason why shouldn't we. Not only as Palestinians, but as Christians and Muslims. When we talk about justice, when we talk about human life, when we talk about dignity, all those values, religious values, are both Christian and Muslim values. And yes, we work together. That's our experience. What do we say about Muslims? They are our brothers and sisters. What do they say about us? It's up to them to say it, but will they consider us as their brothers and sisters? Now coming to the Bible and what the Quran says about the Christians, about the Muslims, etc. Either we take the whole holy book together, or we make our own choice of verses. I am against this supermarket theology. You know the supermarket theology, how we treat the Bible? When you go to the supermarket, you don't buy the whole supermarket. You choose what you like, what you want, what you need. You pay for it and you leave. With the Bible, you can never do the same. You take the whole Bible, you cannot take verses, because you know God of war is in the Bible. God of Israel, of hosts, God who commanded Amalekites not to make treaties with them and not to have peace with them, this is the God of the Bible. To say that this is not the same God, please. I'm talking not as an expert in Islam, but as someone who lived all his life with Muslims, and I know something about Islam. I know that the first thing about God for Islam is that He's Rahman ar-Rahim. He's merciful and most compassionate. And there is a friend of, a scholar, an Islamic scholar, who did his PhD on God Rahman Rahim, the compassionate and merciful, and God is love. To compare the two expressions, and at the end he said, that's the same thing that we believe in different words. So if you say that God in Islam commands whatever, it exists in the Quran. Yes, there are verses in the Quran, as well as there are verses in the Bible. So do we have to choose to make our own choice of verses? And this is my response to the question of interpretation of the Bible. Sometimes we misuse the Bible. We have our own ideas, our own ideology, our own human ideas, and then we go to the Bible to prove my own ideas. So you see, he says that this land belongs to me. You see, he's fighting with me. I'm right, you are wrong. The Bible says so. And you know, the Bible, you can find whatever you are looking for in the Bible, and the opposite too. The real question for the Bible is how to accept the whole. 30 seconds to tell you about my God, the God I believe in, the God that I worship, who's Father of all, who tells me that all human beings, including Muslims, are your brothers and sisters, that the first commandment is love, that you have to work for justice and peace, that He's not pleased with the oppression of people, He's not pleased with the suffering of people. If His plans include continuous war, that's not the God that I believe in. If he wants the oppression of any kind of people or dehumanize them, etc., that's not the God that I believe in. So that's my God, the God of Jesus Christ, who preached love to all human beings, where there is no Jew, no Gentile, no Muslim, no Christian, no man or woman, slave or free, etc. We are all one. That's the God that I believe in, and I hope that we worship the same God. Thank you.